graphic design and design in general can feel really stupid in times like this. Like I definitely have been grappling with that. But I think visual communication is such a vital part of civic engagement. Being able to communicate a complex idea effectively through design is what we're all here for. That's kind of the whole job, right? Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. Today is a special episode and we are kind of breaking from our format, most likely, of solo client, solo expert, because I want to tell you guys about this idea. I'm so jazzed on it. I think you're going to be jazzed on it. I think this has a lot of potential to really get us reinvigorated about our design work and feel like we're making a difference. So without further ado, I'm going to explain the very special surprise we've been keeping, which is we're bringing back the Kiss My Portfolio Challenge. Woo! People go crazy. This is for a few reasons. First, and as you might have heard if you're a regular listener of the podcast, we're going to be migrating the Facebook group, or what was the Facebook group, to a new platform. That is for a lot of different reasons. I actually interviewed the founder of Heartbeat on the podcast a few weeks ago and learned about all the capabilities within that, and also became increasingly frustrated with the oligarchy, the tech oligarchy that is included and involved in our politics and the role that they play there. Also, because I've noticed there's a huge decline in the engagement on the Facebook group because I think less of us are on Facebook because Facebook sucks right now. So, all that to say, when we were working on building the new group for you guys, I was thinking about how much fun we had with the Kiss My Portfolio Challenge and how much it brought me joy to see designers improve, to help people get work in their portfolio that they felt represented themselves and their aesthetics, and also wanted to speak to kind of the moment that we are now in the world. And if you are like me and a lot of my friends feeling very helpless and hopeless about our politics, about war and violence and disagreements, and feeling like we have to censor what we say to be palatable to people. And I really was feeling the pull to create a reason to inspire people to design in a way that's aligned with their values. So we have a new challenge written. I'm really excited to tell you about it. And I'm really excited to kind of pair the new challenge with the launch of our Heartbeat group. So you have two options. The first option would be take the challenge, join the group, get the feedback. Or if you just want to be a lurker because you're not a designer, but you are maybe a creative or a business owner, you're looking for a designer, this would be a great way to spy on the talent that is in our orbit. So to join the group, you're going to want to go to mkwcreative.co/KMA. That'll give you a big fat button that'll take you right into the group. Or you can go to app.heartbeat.chat/kissmyaesthetic. So 2 ways to get there. I will also start linking it in my bio so that it's easy to find. This is a free group. It is totally free to join. And it's basically going to function really similarly to the Facebook group, the way that it used to function. There's also new features and functionality within that group, which I'm really excited to roll out. But that's where we will be hosting the design challenge. And I'm excited. I'm super excited. So if you've taken a challenge before, you can maybe skip forward a few minutes in this episode, but I'm going to explain what the challenge is and the purpose, and then we'll get into the prompt and the process. So the challenge, the Kiss My Portfolio Challenge, was designed by me during COVID as a way to help designers design better work for their portfolio. I would put forward a fictitious prompt and basically have broken down our design process into 10 prompts over 10 days. Those are weekdays. So it's 2 full weeks, 5 days each week, where you have something that you're supposed to be working on, and then you submit it for feedback, just like homework, just like school. Meaning that at the end of the project, you're going to have something that you can put on your portfolio, you can post on social media, you can use to attract more clients, etc. Additionally, each time that we offered the Kiss My Portfolio Challenge, because this is technically the 7th time, so the last 6 times that we've offered it, we've leveled it up. So I brought in guest judges to help me give feedback on each of the specific days. So some of the judges will be coming in to give you feedback on your logo designs, your patterns, your mock-ups, your typography, and some past participants will also be judges this time around. If you guys remember, this is how I found Madison on my team, is that she took a Kiss My Portfolio challenge back in the day and just absolutely crushed it, that I reached out to her and said, you want a job? So there's a lot of potential here. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to really flex your muscles creatively, really with that goal being having something you can put in your portfolio by the end of this that isn't, the constraints aren't from an actual client, right? You're not limited by delivering what the client needs or wants per se, because it's a fictitious prompt, but this one is still even a little bit different from that. So I'm excited to tell you what it is. In order to participate, you're going to need to download the challenge guide. So the challenge guide is on my website underneath the resources tab. So mkwcreative.co/resources. It is KMP7. It's called The Table. We'll explain. But you'll download that PDF. In that PDF, it will give you all of the information that you need to know about the brand in order to get started, as well as tips, resources, links, questions, things to think about as you're addressing each of those daily prompts. So each day we'll break down. I'm going to tell you all of this in a minute. And what you'll do is do the work, then go into the group and find the post of the day where you would submit your work. And then in the comment section, upload the image of your work. So you're going to upload the image of whatever you're working on. It can be a screenshot. It can be a JPEG or a PNG, but you're going to drop it in there and we're going to look at, for example, your mood board or your font system that you selected or your submark logos. Whatever the prompt is for that day, you're going to upload it onto that comment section. And then in the replies of those comments is where you'll get feedback from myself, the other guest judges, and maybe some of the other designers with other ideas that you haven't considered. That's how the challenge works. It's going to start on Monday, March 30th and finish on Friday, April 10th. So it's going to be 2 weeks, 5 days each. The work should not take you more than 2 hours a day maximum. Most people can get it done in like 45 minutes. But, we've got Sarah on the TikTok guest judge. Hello. So excited. But basically you can submit your work anytime during the day and we will get you feedback within 24 hours. That's kind of the promise. So, drum roll, without further ado, I'd love to read to you the prompt. But before I do that, actually, I want to also explain why it's free this time. I used to host this challenge for $50 and I would do it for the first 50 people. We are still going to limit the challenge to the first 50 people that download the guide, but I'm making it free because, first of all, I feel like we need it. Secondly, I feel that this prompt specifically has more of a community service, community activism bend to it. And I never want to gatekeep those types of resources. I want everyone to be able to participate. That being said, we can't give feedback to more than 50 people. So that's why I do have to cap it at 50. But if you're wanting to get access to this guide and get access to the information, I don't want the cost of it to be the prohibiting factor in that. So without further ado, I'd like to explain the project. So this time, the client is yourself. And I know designing for ourselves is hard, but it's not only yourself, it's your community. You've lived in your community long enough to know what's working and what isn't. You've had the conversations at dinner tables and group chats and neighborhood gatherings that start with, someone should really do something about this. This is your chance to be that someone. So for KMP7, your client is you. You're going to find a local chapter or be a founding member of a local chapter of a group called The Table, a social political action club rooted in your community, built around 2 to 3 issues that you actually care about. You know the neighborhood, you know the people, you know what's been ignored for too long. The table looks different everywhere it exists. In one city, it's 3 teachers and a nurse sitting in a library conference room. And another, it's small business owners tired of decisions being made without them. In yours, it's whatever it needs to be. So before you open Illustrator, you need to ask yourself, what is on the table? What issues are worth showing up for? Who in your community needs a seat? And that's where this brand begins. I am so excited for this. And the whole vision of this was really to create a prompt that would get you thinking about, what are my values and how do I represent that with my work? Because when we represent our values in our work, we attract similar types of projects. So for me, having brands like Gallivant Society, Studio Tigre, Lily Par, Avenue 8 canned cocktails, like those all sound on the surface maybe like they're not as I don't know, like nonprofit or political action committee-ish sounding brands, but the core values of those companies, because I know those founders, are very aligned with our brand and where we're going. Gallivant Society for the fabulously curious, telling people that they don't have to sacrifice being like fabulous and bougie while you travel without like being curious, like staying curious about the places that you're visiting and the cultures and the flavors and the styles and the people that are in those places. Studio Tigre on bringing coffee experiences to people from like global locations. I think of like Avenue 8, woman owned business in a predominantly male dominated space and what all of the implications are of that, right? So, thinking about those brands, thinking about how they help us get more work, more similar kinds of work with similar types of clients is the goal with having you design the table. Is that this work, when it belongs in your portfolio, will hopefully attract and catch the eye of people who feel similarly and care similarly about the same things that you do. So, for context, the table, local social political action club, inspired by the long tradition of community organizing from union halls to kitchen tables to town squares, the table modernizes civic engagement for a generation that is more informed, more connected, and more frustrated than ever. Hello, that's me. The table is a if you're in membership, part community meeting, part action network, part creative collective. It borrows from the warmth of a neighborhood book club, the purpose of a campaign headquarters, and the energy of a grassroots movement that actually gets things done. Unlike national organizations and hand down priorities from above, every chapter of the table is built from the ground up by people who actually live there. The issues are local, the members are neighbors, and the action is real. So the mission of this whole group, and this is also coming out of like my true lived experience. My friends and I are so fed up with politics and the way that the world is going, and we're feeling so isolated and lonely and like kind of on this like never ending treadmill of bad news that we made it a point to start hosting like a monthly meeting where we could just, first of all, vent about what's going on. Second of all, share resources. I saw this. Where did you see that? Where did that come from? Do you think this is real? Like, what's going on here? And then thirdly, to give each other action items and hold each other accountable to start to get more active in the community, join local government positions, find protests, figure out legislation, like support nonprofits that are doing that type of work. So again, this prompt is feeling very near and dear to my heart because it's like I'm living it like right now. And I hope that this challenge in a way also inspires you to think about doing this in your own community with your actual neighbors, with your real friends in real life, and find ways to take your time, treasure, and talent in the direction towards the things that you actually want to affect so that we all don't feel so hopeless in the scenario that we're in. So the mission statement for the table is to cultivate an inclusive, energized, and action-ready environment for people to discover the power of a local civic engagement. So whether you're showing up for the first time with a single issue on your mind or you're a seasoned organizer ready to mobilize your community, the table strives to become the place to turn conversation into change right where you live. The vision for the table is to be a go-to community touchpoint for anyone who gives a damn about where they live and leaving it better than how they found it. Members of the table are your neighbors, creatives, everyday people who are done waiting for someone else to fix things. And the goal is that every chapter really becomes the first of its kind in its community. A can't miss gathering for anyone who believes that showing up is the most powerful thing a person can do. Again, the vision here is that if you get enough people together in a room who are like passionate and proactive and motivated to affect change, that energy snowballs, right? That is contagious. That kind of forward action grassroots effort, especially when you can zero in on focus categories, focus issues, and then actually see the change that you're creating happen is what creates that kind of like domino effect on other areas of your life and other areas of like the quality of life that we have for ourselves and our neighbors, right? So I've suggested in the guide, this is like page 3, some issues categories. So if you're maybe like, oh gosh, I never see myself doing this, but I want to create the branding for something like this, figure out what 2 to 5 issues would be most important for you in this effort, because we don't want to keep the table so open-ended that it doesn't mean anything. I think to brand the table, again, if the end goal here is to create something for your portfolio that works for you, that helps you attract clients that you care about, find those 2 to 3 issues that feel really connected to where you are, and also what affects you. What kind of brands do you want to work with in the future? What kind of organizations and entrepreneurs do you want to have in your circle of influence, right? So the issue categories I'm suggesting here are arts, disabilities, economy, education, environment, food, gender, housing, homelessness, immigration, justice, labor, LGBTQ, mental health, race, safety, technology, transit, voting, and youth. So quite a wide range. If I were taking this challenge, I would definitely print out this guide and like maybe circle the ones that feel most aligned with me. I think if I'm thinking of my friend group and like what we're trying to create with our meetup group, like our focus areas, I think like even like media and First Amendment rights, like being able to voice your opinion, like the actual politics of it is really important to us. I would also say being in a border town, immigration issues, ICE, understanding DHS and what the hell they're doing and like how to support people who are here just trying to make a better life for themselves and pursue their own version of the American dream would be one that's really important to us. Justice, equally as important, of like having there be consequences for bad actors and making sure that criminals actually face consequences for their crimes and following through on that with our 3 branches of government. And then I would also say like mental health is a huge thing that I'm interested in and passionate about and have definitely been through the mud with. And I know a lot of my friends and I care about that deeply because we can't do anything if we're not well, right? So basically, cherry pick your 2 to 3 issues from this list. If you want your version of this brand to include a lot of different issues, you can also do that. But I think for the purpose of creating a cohesive message, focusing on 2 to 5 top issues that you're going to cover in the table and in the branding would be imperative, because I'm thinking that this exists as like an icon set or a color palette or some other way to identify like these are the issues that we touch. And if you're looking for XYZ type of issue, it's not going to be our group, but it'll be something else for you. Or bring it to the table, literally, and we'll be able to work those out. So the next would be brand adjectives. So the best way to kind of position your branding in general is to do really great research. So basically what these first 4 to 8 pages of this guide are, it's all the context and information. This is really similar to what you might get out of a brand questionnaire exercise with a client. It's making sure that you guys are seeing the vision together, you're understanding the positioning, you're figuring out what the brand is, what it is not, and how that's going to inform your design process. So there are brand adjectives listed in this guide. There are brand antonyms, which can also be equally as important. But I think something I'm looking forward to seeing in the challenge is how people do their own research and their own positioning, because I think there's a lot of really great community organizing references to pull from. Think about unions, think about nonprofits, think about organizations like Rotary Club, NAACP, the League of Women Voters, and see what styles they're playing in. Right? Figure out what the suffragettes were using visually if one of your issues is about like women's equality, right? If your issue is healthcare, like how do you really capture the essence of being like a healthcare worker, a healthcare provider, and embed that into the branding? So the table is here attempting to create something that doesn't fully exist yet. It's a hyper-local, designer-forward political action club that looks as good as it acts. And some of the organizations that occupy that space are worth researching. So I would really implore you to try to research things not on Instagram, not on Pinterest, if you can help it, although Pinterest is part of the prompt of this challenge. But find books, articles, podcasts, YouTube videos, literature, interviews, speeches, things that kind of embody the character and the quality of what it is that you're trying to communicate, and figure out how you can bring those into your process. It'll make you a better designer, I promise. On page 5 is where we really start to break down like the ideal audience. Like who could these hypothetical, again, it's not a brand in the sense of like customers or clients, but who could the hypothetical audience members, like membership members, be of this group? And I wrote out 3 different ones for you. So the first is who we're calling Yara. She's a teacher. Yara is a 28-year-old middle school art teacher who lives in your neighborhood her whole life and has watched it change faster than she can keep up with. She shows up to the table because she's tired of talking about what's wrong and is ready to actually do something that she cares about. She cares deeply about education, equity, and housing, and brings half of her friend group to every single meeting. Her coworkers joke that she could organize a protest before first period. So this is the kind of person that is a great advocate of this new social group that you're doing the branding for. So we are designing in a way that Yara feels represented in the brand. The next is Dennis. Dennis is a business owner. He's a 54-year-old small business owner who has run the same hardware store on the same block for 20 plus years. He's watched 3 of his neighborhood businesses close over the last 2 years and is done waiting for someone at City Hall to notice. He came to his first table meeting skeptical, but has not missed one since. He does not consider himself an activist. He just considers himself a neighbor who pays attention. So how do we create branding that attracts both Yara, the teacher, who is very politically and socially involved, and Dennis, who's someone who's not as involved, but knows that there's problems that he has an opinion on and wants to help? And then the third person that we have is a potential audience member, membership member of this concept, the table, is Simone. And Simone is a 42-year-old ER nurse who has spent 2 decades watching the same systemic problems walk through her hospital doors at every shift. She comes to the table because she understands what happens to a community when its health infrastructure fails, the people who need it the most. She does not have patience for meetings that go nowhere. But when she sees real action being planned, she's the first to volunteer and the last to leave. So again, who we're trying to attract in this group are teachers, business owners, nurses, neighbors, moms, dads, gardeners, like anyone that's in your community that has a vested interest in seeing it improve is a candidate for your group at the table. I don't think I would particularly recommend branding this exercise as like only women or only men or only this, only that. Keep it as inclusive as possible, but it is still important to create branding where everyone feels represented. So what are the commonalities between the teacher, the business owner, and the nurse that they could feel like they could attend, they could wear the t-shirt, they could make the poster, they could share it on social media, and it would feel consistent with them and what they care about in a visual sense? That's part of the challenge. Next is the aesthetics. It's my recommendation that you really lean into the energy of your specific community. So wherever you live, lean into that. This brand should feel like it was made by the people who live there for the people who live there. Think about protest graphics, community bulletin boards, screen printed posters, hand stamped flyers, the visual language of people who mean business. So for myself, who's based in San Diego, like obviously there would be some natural elements. There would be ocean or palm tree or surfboard. There would be some connection of like, this is the San Diego chapter of this thing, right? Creativity and clever touches are very encouraged, but make sure you do your research about the issues of your chapter of the table and what it stands for, considering how you can make that information feel urgent, digestible, and human. Good design has always been one of the most powerful tools in civic history, and we are encouraging you to use it. Recommendations to the opposite side, don't be preachy. So we don't want to be heavy-handed or visually exhausting. This shouldn't feel like a campaign ad or a nonprofit annual report or a protest sign from 1987, but instead it should really feel like a brag-worthy current, community-forward, and reflective vision of who you're representing and how change happens. Don't design only for one demographic. Remember, we want to make sure that it's not just one issue or one aesthetic, one color. I think there needs to be range in this. There's a lot of different ways to approach that. And the table belongs to everyone at it. So we need to make sure that the brand feels that way. So really designing for inclusivity is going to be key here. So that's all the context, all the information about the project that you need to know. I hope that that makes sense because, again, this has been like something that's just been rolling around in my brain. And I'm like, I got to get this manifested into something. Then it's the challenge overview. So now you have all the information from the client, air quotes. And now we're going to actually like walk through those daily prompts. So day 1 is just about understanding the project. I'm going to be going live in the group at 9 a.m. PST that Monday to answer any questions on behalf of the project. If you have clarifications, if you're confused by something, if you don't understand the process or how you get feedback, Any of that can be answered in the group. Again, you're going to want to be able to join the Heartbeat group. You can go to mkwcreative.co/KMA, which will give you a big fat button to click right through to the group, or you can go to app.heartbeat.chat/kissmyaesthetic. Also, both of these links will be in the show notes. They are also linked for you in the challenge guide. So if you go to purchase the challenge guide, which is $0 on my website, you can go straight to the resources tab. So mkwcreative.co/resources, KMP7, click it, check out. In that guide is the link to the group. It is imperative that you join the group because that is how you get feedback. The next day, day 2, which is Tuesday, we'll be collecting inspiration. So based on your research, you do want to actually start to collect a Pinterest board of your ideas. It's my recommendation that you organize that Pinterest board into different sections: logo inspo versus color versus photography versus print, digital, social, and messaging. Having your ideas organized in Pinterest makes it so that people don't get overwhelmed and that you can have them focus on the thing that you actually want them to look at. So for example, I might pin something on Pinterest in the logo inspo folder that I want them to look at the quality of the logo, not necessarily the colors, for example. So that's day 2. Then day 3 is your mood board and color palette. So once you have your mood board and color palette nailed down, you're going to start to work in on that collage and grid of the images. So I recommend that you source for stock photos and videos from Unsplash, Pexels, all the free stock. Search through some internet archives. Find some open source libraries. Those are great resources as well. Or you can generate your own images with the AI tool of your choice if that aligns for you. I know some people that doesn't align. That's totally fine. If you prefer not to use AI at all, that is your choice. If you want to use it, this would be a good chance to use it. It's definitely recommended that you use royalty-free stock images so that you're not running into infringement issues on your mood boards. So you're going to then post your mood board and your color palettes. I recommend that your color palette, you're sticking between 6 to 8 shades. You've got good range. There's good balance. There's some neutrals. There's warm colors. There's cool colors, and that there's a harmony there. And then you're going to want to post that in the group on the thread for Wednesday. This is the Wednesday prompt. So Monday, it's just Q&A. It's just onboarding, making sure everybody knows where they're going, etc. Read through the challenge guide. Tuesday, collect your inspiration. Wednesday, mood board. Then Thursday is the main logo design. So with your inspiration and your mood board or your color palette completed, it's now time to start your main logo design. You want to consider a logo that's a combination of an icon plus a word mark plus a tagline as your main. That's usually a good default. The main logo will be the one that's most commonly seen by your ideal client and should encompass as many of the brand adjectives as possible. We like to use Adobe Illustrator for this, but you can also use Affinity Designer, Procreate. I would stay away from creating your logos in Canva because you will run into trademarking issues down the road. So this would be a great chance to really work on your vector skills, start building a logo design in any of those other logo design vector-based tools. Then post that in the group to get feedback. Friday is for submarks and alternates. And because we have these 2 days back to back, the main logo and the submarks and alternates, if you want to if you didn't get to a Thursday and you want to post it on Friday, fine. That's the only these 2 prompts back to back are probably the most work intensive ones. So if you want to, I'll give you a little bit more grace on that Thursday to Friday transition to make sure that we have really quality work that's coming through. Also, you'll have that whole weekend to catch up. So if you have Saturday and Sunday, or your week got ahead of you, or work got crazy, or something came up, or you got sick and you weren't feeling it and you want to revisit it, I'll also keep that weekend open-ended to anyone that wants to post their work over the weekend for feedback. We can absolutely do so. So in your submarks and alternate logos, this is where you're working on your horizontal logo for letterheads and decals. Your expanded logo, maybe adding your established date or your city or your core values, something additional to just the tagline. The icon, which will be used for your social media profiles, is also your favicon. And then maybe a stamp or a seal or a crest or a square cropped logo that you could use for branded collateral. Again, you'll take a big old screenshot of that, drop it into the group, get your feedback from myself and the guest judges. The following Monday, so you'll have those 2 weekends to catch up if you couldn't get it all done in the first 5 days. The following Monday, we'll work on fonts and supporting icons. So you're going to want to create a system of fonts, including a heading font, a subheading font, so your H1, H2, a body font, and an accent font. Accent font could also be used as buttons, for example. I've linked out some of my favorite sources for that. And then also you'll want to create a collection of icons, which can help explain the process or services to that ideal customer or ideal member, of course, that you might encounter. So sources for that would be like Flat Icon, Creative Market, Pixiden, Illustrations.co, free icon shop. Also, you can create your own. Again, great chance to really work on those vector skills, work on your illustration skills, and maybe even do like iterations of the logos, right? Like we talked about how this concept, the table, could really cover a lot of ground. And when you're selecting those 2 to 5 issues that you want to be kind of the centerpieces of your table, what are those things? Right. And so you could create icons to represent each of those different issues. So environmentalism and women's rights and LGBTQ plus and education and healthcare and housing and da 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 da. Like you could find a way to represent that visually with your icons. Tuesday would be brand patterns and elements. We're going to be now creating patterns that can be used for things like print, social media, graphics, web banners, physical collateral. This could also be things like gradients, right? Gradients, illustrations. Maybe you want to add in some other stuff in this like kind of patterns and brand elements section. Maybe it's like GIFs or animation. If you're someone who wants to get more into web design, you could design a landing page. If you are someone that wants to get into more email work, you could design emails. You could design print. You could design a box. You could design a craft kit. Like really this day 7 is very open-ended on purpose so that you can add in whatever other little things you think are going to help communicate the mission and vision of this group in this section. So you're going to submit that for feedback. Then day 8, which is Wednesday, you'll be working on your print marketing mockups. This would be kind of like print/merch. So this is maybe like an enamel pin or button, a tote bag, an embroidered patch, a yard sign, window decal, protest sign, a hat, a hoodie, a t-shirt, a rally flyer. Like list goes on and on. Lots of examples for you there. That's print. Thursday would be digital mockups. So this would be like your Instagram layout, your Facebook layout, like a quote graphic, a digital flyer. Maybe it's an animated logo, YouTube branding, email newsletter. Again, this is a great chance to really work on your like website landing pages, website pages in general. Maybe there's an app component to what it is that you're creating. This is for all of your digital mockups. Then, last but not least, day 10 is when you present and share. Finally, all your hard work is going to be put together into a multi-slide presentation. I would recommend Google Slides or Canva, and then use the video recording function. So I linked an example for you, but if you go on my website, click into any of those portfolio projects, you'll find the videos I'm talking about. I always talk about how important it is to communicate your ideas over video so that someone can hear your voice, hear your thought process, get a sense for who you are. It creates a really seamless experience for a potential client because then they can immediately click in to the experience of what it's like going to be like working with you. Focus on how you were able to solve the design dilemma with your creative execution and present your work so that it's attractive to that ideal client by showcasing what you care about the most, right? Then the call to action on that final day is to link out your presentation or video in the group for feedback. This is a great piece of media, again, that can just live on your website. That's what we do with ours. But at the very, very, very end of the challenge guide, I give you an entire list of ideas on how you can take what you created and turn it into content to help market yourself with. So case study page on your website, recap blog of your process, Facebook content, YouTube content, Instagram content, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, etc. Like goes on and on. Would love to be tagged. This would also be another great exercise on documenting your process. So we'll talk about that on day 1 of like, I would really, really encourage you to screen record, time lapse, live stream, do something that showcases how you make the thing. Show the process. Show I'm choosing this font because I'm choosing these colors because I'm playing with this icon. I hate it. I'm doing this instead. I have this logo. I think it works, but it's missing XYZ. And like not be so scared to showcase what goes into the making of, because a lot of times we think it's boring. But to someone who's interested in working with you, they want to see your brain at work. Just like when you're walking down the street and there's a cafe that's making fresh croissants. And if you see someone hand rolling fresh croissants in the window, you're way more invested in the outcome of that croissant than if you just saw the final product. Correct? So people go nuts for this kind of stuff. It does make for great social media content. And I think it'll help you get in the practice of showcasing your process, because ultimately, yes, the client is hiring you for the outcome, but the process sells the outcome. The process, the thought process, the intention, the decision making, the creative skill, all of that, the technical skill, that all contributes to the output. And then you'll have a piece to put in your portfolio. And then the challenge is done. So that'll be done on April 10th. So starts March 30th, ends April 10th. It is free to do the challenge. It is, however, only open to the first 50 participants. So if you are a participant, I will basically be giving you a special designation on your profile picture in the group, because we can do that, and add a little special emoji to your profile to let people know that you're a challenger, which is very exciting. And that will allow you to really, share your work and be able to grow alongside other designers and all kind of work from the same prompt yet different. Like, I think what I'm excited about this challenge more than others where things were more rigid is that although it's following the same idea, there's so many different iterations. There's so many different ways you could take this, and you could really meld it to create something for yourself that is so representative of your values, your styles, your aesthetic, your issues that you care about, your ethics, your morals. Like, how often do we really get to work on a project that gets us fired up in that way? And then the added benefit of all of this is then now you have the branding to actually like do it in your community, should you choose to actually start your own version of the table in your hometown with your neighbors and your peers, and how cool that would be. And I kind of just like get this vision in my head of like a map of the world, and all of a sudden there's like bloop, 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 and there's like all these, they're all popping up all over because people were able to create and sell the concept to people. And again, like, graphic design and design in general can feel really stupid in times like this. Like, I definitely have been grappling with that. But I think visual communication is such a vital part of civic engagement. Being able to communicate a complex idea effectively through design is what we're all here for. That's kind of the whole job, right? So not only is it good practice, I hope it motivates you. I hope you get inspired. I hope this really feels like, again, there's enough parameters to know what you're supposed to be working on, but there's enough leeway to really make it your own. And I'm really excited to see what the designers put forward as far as their own take on this challenge. Yay. Okay, so all the links will be linked in the show notes. To get the challenge guide and to qualify for the challenge, because there will only be 50 spots, we will be cutting it off at 50. You can still download the guide, but you won't be able to get feedback every day because I can't give feedback to more than 50 people in a day. It's too much. So mkwcreative.co/resources. And the one that you want to download is called KMP7, The Table. Kiss My Portfolio 7, The Table. That will be linked. And then you want to join the group. The group is where you submit and get feedback. So you'll work on something every single day. It really shouldn't take you more than 2 hours a day. That's being generous. If it is, maybe like rethink your processes. Maybe it's a time to work on getting faster with your work. So if you can shave off 2 hours a day, it's after your 9 to 5, it's on your lunch break, it's while your kids are taking a nap, whatever that looks like for you, submit your work, get the feedback, implement the feedback, become a better designer. That's the pitch. I'm really fired up for this one. This is like the most motivated I felt in a long time. And I'm hoping you guys are feeling the same. See ya in the chat.